Hi, I'm Nigel Mansell, and you know, I'm not the type of guy who buys his family presents that he really wants for himself. That's why I bought my wife... 3, 2, 1, go!
When you think of Sonic, you normally think of speed, blast processing, rampant consumerism. Hang on a second, this sounds familiar. Just when I thought I had a great opening, it turns out this is how I began my review of Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, which you should watch. After this video, obviously. I hadn't played this one because, and I'm not joking, I couldn't turn off the vibration settings on my controller. The game apparently only supports keyboard and mouse on PC, support being a term I use loosely. And yes, I'm one of those sorts who gets immersed easier with a controller in a racing game. Is that going to be a problem, or do I need to get my papers checked by the PC brigade and have my 50Hz television scanned in case it contains contraband? Sonic goes back to basics, or starts basic because this was before Transformed, but came out after Sonic R. Oh bollocks! Why do I keep tangenting like this? Sonic and Sega All-Stars gave me a glowing first impression by not being its sequel. It's fast and it only gets faster, its controls are tight and it focuses on making traditional car racing its main draw, rather than the mixed bag it would later become. Whatever problems I had with the follow-up are almost entirely fixed here, and those that aren't can be attributed to just being the first installment of a new spin-off. All-Stars scraps the quasi-non-linear track tree in Transformed, keeping things mundane but understandable with the cup system. There's 4 tracks to a cup, and at the end of the race you'll get points depending on your place. At the end of the 4 races, the points are added up and you unlock the next cup by getting a winning trophy. The target practice, banana grabbing, drifting and boosting challenges remain in the game, just separate. That'd be a complaint in the sequel because the main draw was poo-poo, but here the main draw just, well, it works. It's not poo-poo. Vehicles feel fluid and furious, able to turn at a moment's notice, and the constant need to drift to remain awake is gone, although the game encourages power sliding due to its difficulty. Because the tracks are quite tight, you'll need to be careful where you choose to drift in case you crash, allowing another pesky racer to take the lead. The tracks also twist and turn enough for me to enjoy them, and the constant jumps and obstacles make sure your eyes are always on the road, not just the set dressing. There are times where the scenery is staggering and they're some of the most exciting tracks to play. The background art only highlights how chaotic the map is going to be. In addition to being competently designed, tracks are enhanced with all the weapons flying around. No, there's not as many as the sequel, but once again All-Stars goes for quality over quantity. Homing rockets, free-flying boxing gloves, bouncing bombs and traffic cones make up the game's offensive weapons, all of which work just fine. Topsy-turvy stars and rainbows require players to concentrate harder on the tracks and controls, but don't have an impact on vehicles themselves. All of these are countered by shields, a fog-on, and your own use of the environment and vehicle of choice. The game isn't generous with its power-ups, so you won't want to use them willy-nilly. Once more, I don't see this as a problem. It's not bloating the map with unavoidable weapons and mines, and it adds difficulty to an already challenging game. The rarity of the All-Stars power-up is absolutely naff though. You'll never get it, but the same AI opponents you play against as a specific character always without fail get at least 1 per race in a cup. The idea of this ability I never get is that you zoom along the track without resistance, blasting your opponents with unavoidable firepower and super speed. Hell, the game navigates the track for you while you're in this mode, whereas in the sequel you were bouncing all over the goddamn place trying to remain in control. At least that's how I remember it. An added bonus is that you strike fear into the hearts of everyone present when your character theme blares from the speakers. The All-Star abilities look so much better than their appearance in the next game, with characters transforming their cars and themselves into the terrors they need to be to show who's the king of the road. Or queen, we're all about equal opportunities here. Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing is fantastic as a kart racing game, but the cups don't last very long. Doing the same cups across 3 difficulties isn't going to be very replayable for most folks, so the missions will give you plenty more to do. Plus it's just something different. These were my favourite things in the sequel because the normal racing stuff bored me to no end, and yet they're still better here. The improved controls and clarity in the grading system have turned an already superb mode into something I sunk an extra 4 hours into, and I was determined to get AAA on all 64 missions. The only real limitation with these is that you don't get to choose your own character, but once again, I think it adds a welcome challenge. Blimey, I hate that there's nothing I hate about this game!
Yeah, boy.
If meaningless grades aren't your thing, you can earn Sega Miles from high scores and good performance in all modes. In fact, you can play for 10 seconds, quit what you were doing and still get Sega Miles, but that's not necessarily a good thing. Miles are used to upgrade your license with the total, and you can spend them on new characters, maps and songs. Much like with DuckTales Remastered, I've never felt so compelled to get this currency and unlock all the stuff. The selection of songs, the choice of characters and the maps are all worth paying for with the currency you'll accrue through general play, but there is just one problem. The variety in the games is far and few between. The default free characters are mostly from Sonic. If you want more from House of the Dead, Jet Set Radio, Crazy Taxi and Super Monkey Ball, you gotta pay up. Even then, there's approximately 3 maps, 4 songs and 1 character associated with the non-Sonic franchises available to purchase. I'm pretty sure Sega could have allowed Sumo to use Shinobi, Comic Zone, Decap Attack and Mad World licenses, which would do nothing bad for this game at all, you pricks! This is the one thing Transform did better, but doesn't make up for all the other problems I had with that game. Before I crash and burn with my final thoughts, I'd like to tell you how I feel about the graphics and the sound design. Sonic and Sega All-Stars comes close to its sequel in terms of visuals. The graphical fidelity is stunning even 6 years after its release, and that's only half the battle. The aesthetics are eye-catching if repetitive, not daring to go outside of the most boiled-down memorable image. Sonic tracks are just elements of 2 levels and adventure. House of the Dead is just a House of the Dead. Samba de Amigos levels are just places with people and objects dancing, you get the idea. Yeah, I struggled to come up with anything clever to say there. I suppose I've done so for the entirety of this review, but let's move on. Having said that, there's some really good looking levels like the Billy Hatcher tracks and that one with the pink neon snake in Jet Set Radioland, also known as Tokyo. And even then, the most familiar maps are brought well to the racing scene with appropriate level hazards and unique elements to surprise players. The sound design is cracking, using music ripped directly from the previous games without that techno remix tripe that we heard in the sequel. Well, the devs did make a theme song that's okay, but it cuts out on the trophy screen and ruins the best bit of the song. The cars sound great, especially with unique engine noises, and the Commentator is a nice addition to the race. This guy may have some awkward lines, but he makes things all the more competitive when he brags about your rival's successes and mocks your own failures. I detest having to say this all the time, but this is just another small feature, not a huge revamp or an overly compensating gimmick, and it's bloody marvellous.
Do you want everyone at home to think you're totally useless? You don't! Well, win then!
It's time to crash and burn by giving you my final thoughts. If I was a competent editor, I'd actually do something with me in a car crashing and burning, but I'm not, so you'll just have to imagine. I'm sure some of you won't have any problems with that. Sometimes, less is more. Sumo Digital probably thought their game was brimming with stuff, and while I'd welcome more maps, I'd want to see less of the current properties used, but an equal amount with more franchises. Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing does less than its sequel, but achieves a greater amount. Sure, its total runtime or drive time is less than Transformed, but it's way more replayable, and you're not forced into activities you don't want to do. Because of this, it almost feels like 2 separate games on one disc. Download, both with a reason to continue playing, not to mention the multiplayer content, which I'm not a fan of, but they provide some extra fun with friends. On an editorial note, I know this review's not added anything new to the discussion or contain much in the way of stuff to laugh at, but I made this review to do justice to the spin-off series. I don't think I was overly harsh to the sequel, and I stand by my thoughts on it, but I feel as though I needed to recommend this game because, well, I mean, just look at it! Until the next time, I'm Johnbonne, number 2 source for number 1 games. Now, excuse me, I really must get some consistency with my intro and outros.